Meet Maya and Zoe. They're both 26. They grew up 2 streets apart, went to the same high school, and even took the same economics class. The one where the teacher drew a house on the whiteboard and said, "This is the American dream, and someday it'll be yours." Neither of them believed him. Not because they're lazy, not because they spend too much on coffee, but because somewhere between graduating college and turning 26, the math simply stopped making sense. Maya works in marketing. She earns $58,000 a year. Zoe works in healthcare admin. She earns $61,000. Both of them, statistically, are doing everything right. Stable job, no major debt spirals, decent credit score. And yet, when they open Zillow late at night, scrolling through listings the way other people scroll through dating apps, they both feel the same thing. Not excitement. Exhaustion. So today we're not going to ask whether Gen Z should buy a house. We're going to ask something more honest. Why don't they want to? And by the end, you'll see it's not one reason. It's 5, stacked on top of each other, quietly building a wall between an entire generation and the front door. Their parents walk through so easily. Let's start with the number that explains almost everything else. In 1985, the median home price in America was roughly $84,000. The median household income was around $23,000. That's a price-to-income ratio of about 3.6. Buy a house for a little over 3.5 years of your salary. Simple. Today, the median home price sits above $420,000. Median household income is around $80,000. That's a ratio of over 5. In some cities, it's closer to 9 or 10. Maya isn't imagining it when she says the math feels broken. It is broken. Not emotionally. Mathematically. Now layer on the second problem, one Maya and Zoe's parents never had to think about. Student debt. Maya graduated with $34,000 in loans. Zoe, $41,000. Together, that's $75,000 that never went toward a down payment. Never sat in an index fund compounding for a decade. Never became equity in anything. It went to a lender, every single month, for years, before either of them earned a single dollar toward the dream they were told they'd eventually afford. By the time Maya finished paying off enough debt to even start saving seriously, she was 27. Her mother had already owned a home for 6 years by that age. Here's where it gets interesting, though, because if you stop the story here, it would just be a sad statistic. But Maya and Zoe aren't sad about it. They're strategic. And that's the part most people miss about Gen Z. It's not that they can't do math. It's that they did the math, and they came to a different conclusion than their parents did. Zoe ran the numbers on a condo near her office. Purchase price, $310,000. At current mortgage rates, her monthly payment, including taxes and insurance, would land around $2,450. Renting a comparable unit 2 blocks away costs her $1,750. That's a $700 monthly gap. So instead of stretching herself into a mortgage, Zoe takes that $700 difference and puts it straight into a Roth IRA and a taxable brokerage account. Every single month, automatically, before she can talk herself out of it. Maya does something slightly different. She's not investing the difference in stocks. She's investing it in herself. A certification that bumped her salary by $9,000 a year, and in flexibility. Because 6 months ago, Maya's company offered her a chance to work remotely from another city for a year, closer to her aging grandmother. She said yes in about 4 seconds. If she owned a house, that conversation would have taken a lot longer. Involved a property manager, a tenant screening process, and a considerably higher level of stress. This is reason number 2, and it doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. Mobility isn't a luxury for this generation. It's a survival strategy. The average person now changes jobs every 3 to 4 years. Gen Z, specifically, is projected to hold even more jobs across their career than millennials did. A 30-year mortgage assumes you know where you'll be in 3 decades. Most 26-year-olds today can't confidently tell you where they'll be in 3 years. Now, Here's something almost nobody says out loud, and it's reason number 3. Home ownership used to be the safe choice. For Maya and Zoe, it often feels like the risky one. Think about what buying actually requires. A 20% down payment on that $420,000 median home is $84,000 in cash, sitting still, doing nothing, while it waits to become a down payment. For Maya, saving $84,000 on a $58,000 salary, after debt, after rent, after simply living, isn't a 5-year plan. It's closer to a 15-year plan, and that's assuming nothing goes wrong. Compare that to renting and investing the difference. Zoe's brokerage account can be accessed in 3 days if she needs it. It can be split across industries, across countries, across risk levels. Her one condo option would have tied her entire net worth to a single building on a single street in a housing market she has no control over. To her, and to a growing number of her generation, that concentration isn't stability. It's the opposite. Reason number 4 is quieter, but it might be the most powerful one. It's psychological, and it's generational. Maya and Zoe watched the 2008 crash happen when they were kids. They watched their own parents' friends lose homes, lose equity, lose the safe investment that was supposed to be untouchable. Then they entered the workforce during a pandemic, watched rent spike 30% in some cities in a single year, and watched interest rates double in less than 18 months. Their parents' generation was taught that a house always goes up. Maya and Zoe were taught, by direct experience, that nothing always goes up. That single shift in belief changes everything about how a generation approaches 30-year commitments. And then there's reason number 5, the one that sounds the most like an excuse until you actually run the numbers. Lifestyle. Not in the avocado toast sense everyone loves to joke about, but in a real, calculated sense, Zoe spends about $200 a year on travel. Maya spends less on travel, but more on continuing education and career development. Neither of them sees this as reckless spending. They see it as investment, just not the kind that shows up as a deed, with their name on it. A house doesn't increase your salary. A house doesn't increase your salary. A certification might. A house doesn't create memories with your family before your grandmother, realistically, has 10 good years left. A flight does. Now, to be fair, and this part matters, because an honest video has to include it, renting isn't free of risk either. Zoe's rent has climbed 22% over the past 4 years. She has no lease length guarantee. Her landlord could decide not to renew, could sell the building, could raise the rent again next spring, and there's very little she can do about any of it. She's also not building equity. Every dollar she pays in rent disappears completely, and unless she genuinely keeps investing that monthly difference and stays disciplined about it for years, the math that looks good on a spreadsheet today quietly falls apart by year 15. Maya's path carries its own risk, too. She's betting on her income continuing to grow faster than home prices do, and if it doesn't, she may find herself permanently priced out of the market she's currently avoiding, watching the ratio get worse instead of better. So who's right? That's actually the wrong question. The same way, it's the wrong question for any generation before this one. Maya and Zoe aren't rejecting the idea of home ownership. Ask either of them, and they'll tell you they'd still like to own something someday. What they've rejected is the idea that owning a home by 30 is a measure of whether they're doing life correctly. They've rejected debt-to-income ratios that assume salaries most of their peers don't earn. They've rejected the idea that a mortgage payment is automatically smarter than a rent payment, when in half the cities in this country, the math no longer agrees. Gen Z isn't afraid of commitment. They're afraid of committing to a decision that made sense in 1985 and quietly stopped making sense somewhere around 2021. So the next time someone says, this generation just doesn't want to grow up, doesn't want responsibility, doesn't want roots, ask them one question. Did they run the numbers? Because when you actually run them, price to income, student debt, mobility, market volatility, An opportunity cost. It stops looking like a generation avoiding adulthood. It starts looking like a generation doing exactly what every generation before them did. Following the math. It's just that this time, the math pointed somewhere different.